At Mom's birthday, my brother bragged about buying her a car. You didn't even get her flowers, he sneered. I smiled and handed her a small envelope. She opened it, gasped, and whispered, "You bought me a house?" My brother's smile disappeared. "No," I said. "I bought yours." He made his entrance like he always did, late, loud, and perfectly timed to steal the spotlight. The front door creaked open just as my cousin began singing the birthday song, and in walked my brother, sunglasses still on despite the evening light. He held up a shiny set of car keys like a trophy, dangling them between two fingers. "Sorry I'm late," he said, flashing his signature grin. "Had to pick up something special for Mom." The room shifted instantly. Conversations paused. Heads turned. My aunt stopped slicing the cake mid-motion. My cousin's fork hovered in midair. He walked straight to the cake table and dropped the keys beside the candles. Brand new. Leather seats. Backup camera. All for her. My aunt gasped. My cousin clapped. Mom blinked, unsure whether to be excited or overwhelmed. I stayed near the window, watching the whole thing unfold like a rerun I'd seen too many times. He always knew how to make an entrance. Growing up, he was the golden boy. The one who got the bigger slice of cake, the louder applause, the front seat on every road trip. I learned early how to fade into the background. It was easier than competing. Dinner was served, and the table filled with the usual mix of relatives. Some genuinely happy to be there, others just curious about the drama. My brother took the seat at the head naturally. He talked about his job, his promotion, the new condo he was eyeing. He made sure to mention the car again, twice. Mom smiled politely, nodding at all the right moments. Then, between bites of roast chicken, he turned to me. "You didn't even get her flowers," he said, voice casual, but the smirk curled at the edge of his mouth like he'd been saving it all night. The table went quiet for a beat. I didn't flinch. I reached for my glass of water and took a slow sip. Let him talk. Let him shine. I had waited too long for this moment to waste it on petty comebacks. The envelope in my pocket felt heavier than it should. Just a plain white rectangle, no ribbon, no glitter. I had carried it for weeks, checking it every night, making sure the papers inside were still crisp, still real. It wasn't just a gift. It was a statement. A quiet one, but loud enough to echo. I had worked for this. Every hour, every sacrifice, every moment I chose to stay silent while he soaked up the spotlight. That envelope was my voice. After dessert, when the plates were cleared and the room had settled into soft chatter, I stood up. Mom looked at me surprised. I walked over and handed her the envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it," I said. She peeled it open slowly, careful not to tear the edges. Her eyes scanned the first page. Then the second. Her hand flew to her mouth. "You bought me a house?" The room froze. My brother's smile vanished. "Wait, what?" I turned to him. "No. I bought yours." He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean the house you've been trying to sell for months. The one you couldn't afford to keep. I bought it." His face shifted. Confusion, disbelief, something else I couldn't name. "You're joking." I shook my head. "I'm not." Mom looked between us, still holding the papers. "You bought his house?" "I did," I said. "And I put your name on it." The silence that followed was thick. No one moved. No one spoke. My brother stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I kissed Mom's cheek, whispered, "Happy birthday," and walked out. Outside the air was cool. I didn't rush. I walked slowly, letting the night settle around me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't check it. I knew what it was: questions, confusion, maybe even anger. Let them wonder. That moment wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about winning. It was about reclaiming something that had been taken from me years ago. My place, my voice, my worth. I remembered the day he inherited the house. Mom had said, "It makes sense. He's more stable." I had nodded, packed my things and left. No argument. No protest. Just silence. But silence has a way of growing. Of building. Of becoming something stronger than noise. I had spent years working, saving, planning. I didn't have his charm, his spotlight, or his shortcuts. But I had grit. And I had patience. The envelope was proof. Later that night I sat on my couch, lights dimmed, tea cooling on the table. I replayed the evening in my mind, not to gloat but to breathe it in. To remind myself that quiet strength matters. That sometimes, The loudest message is delivered without raising your voice. Mom called the next morning. Her voice was soft. I didn't know you were planning this. I know, I said. She paused. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted it to be yours. Not something you had to worry about. Not something tied to him. She didn't speak for a moment. Then she said, thank you. I smiled. You're welcome. My brother didn't call. Not that day. Not the next. But I wasn't waiting. I had already said what I needed to say. And I had said it without words. I didn't wait for my brother's call after the birthday dinner. I knew it wouldn't come. And if it did, it wouldn't be about Mom's happiness. It would be about his pride. That night I sat on my couch, the envelope now tucked away in a drawer, and let the silence settle. It was the kind of silence I'd grown up with. Familiar. Heavy. But this time it didn't feel like defeat. It felt like closure. Growing up, my brother was the sun in our house. Everything revolved around him. Straight A's, football trophies, charm that could melt any adult's heart. He had a way of making people lean in when he spoke, even if he wasn't saying much. I, on the other hand, was quiet. Bookish. The kind of child who read under the covers and preferred puzzles to parties. Our parents didn't mean to play favorites, but they did. Dad would beam at my brother's game highlights, while Mom would fuss over his science fair ribbons. I learned early how to disappear. Not out of bitterness, just survival. I remember one summer afternoon when I brought home a regional writing award. I placed the certificate on the kitchen counter, hoping someone would notice. My brother walked in minutes later holding a new basketball. The certificate was pushed aside. The ball got a shelf. When Dad passed, the house went to my brother. It makes sense, Mom said. He's more stable. I didn't argue. I just packed my things and left. That house had never felt like mine anyway. The walls held his laughter, his victories, his framed photos. My memories were quieter. Corners I cried in, books I hid behind, dinners where I barely spoke. Leaving wasn't hard. What was hard was pretending it didn't sting. I moved into a small studio apartment with peeling paint and a leaky faucet. I worked 2 jobs. One at a bookstore during the day, another cleaning offices at night. I studied in between, sometimes on the bus, sometimes during lunch breaks. I didn't have vacations or fancy dinners. But I had goals. I wanted something that was mine. Earned, not handed down. There were nights I came home so tired I couldn't feel my feet. I'd sit on the edge of my bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if it was worth it. But then I'd think about that house. The one I never belonged to. And I'd keep going. I visited Mom often. She'd make tea, tell me about her garden, and occasionally mention my brother. He's trying, she'd say. But things are hard. Missed payments. Bad investments. A job that wasn't as secure as he claimed. She didn't complain, just sighed. I listened, nodded, and kept saving. I never mentioned my plans. Not once. One rainy afternoon I stopped by unannounced. Mom was folding laundry, humming softly. She looked tired. He's been distant lately, she said. I think he's embarrassed. I didn't ask why. I already knew. That evening I sat at my desk, scrolling through property listings. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just browsing the way people do when they're dreaming. And then I saw it. My childhood home. Listed quietly, almost hidden. No bold fonts. No flashy photos. Just a simple description. 3-bedroom, needs work. Motivated seller. I stared at the screen for a long time. The price was lower than I expected. I called the agent, made an offer, and signed the papers within a week. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I wanted the moment to be mine. The day I got the keys, I drove to the house alone. The driveway had cracks. The porch light flickered. I stepped inside and was hit with a wave of memories. Some warm, some sharp. The living room still smelled faintly of lemon polish. The kitchen tiles were the same. I walked through each room slowly, touching the walls, the doorknobs, the window frames. In my old bedroom I found a sticker I'd placed on the closet door years ago. It was faded, peeling at the edges. I smiled. For the first time the house didn't feel like his. It felt like mine. I spent the next few weeks fixing it up. I painted the walls, replaced the curtains, planted flowers in the front yard. I didn't rush. I wanted every corner to reflect care, not urgency. One afternoon, while repainting the hallway, I found a box tucked behind the coat closet. Inside were old photos. Birthdays, holidays, school events. Most of them were of my brother. But there were a few of me. One in particular stood out. Me at age 10 holding a book, smiling shyly at the camera. Mom had written our quiet star on the back. I sat on the floor holding that photo and let the moment wash over me. I wasn't invisible. I had just been waiting for the right time to shine. The house was never a home for me growing up. But now it was becoming one. Not because of bricks or paint but because of choice. I chose to reclaim it. To rewrite its story. To make it a place where silence didn't mean absence and quiet didn't mean weakness. I didn't know what my brother would say when he found out. But that wasn't the point. This wasn't about him. It was about me. About Mom. About the years we spent tiptoeing around someone else's spotlight. The house was mine now. And for the first time so was the peace that came with it. The light outside was soft, barely brushing the edges of the curtains. I sat by the window, coffee cooling in my hands, watching the quiet street below. My phone buzzed again. Another message, another missed call. I didn't check. I wasn't ready to explain anything. Not yet. The silence in my apartment felt earned, like a breath I'd been holding for years. Mom's knock came just after noon. No fanfare, no warning, just the gentle tap she'd always used, like she didn't want to disturb the air. I opened the door and there she stood, holding the envelope. Her coat was buttoned wrong and her hair was pulled back in a loose clip. She looked tired but her eyes were steady. She walked in without a word and sat at the kitchen table. I poured her tea the same way I always did, 2 sugars, no milk. She didn't touch it. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. I leaned against the counter. I wanted it to be a surprise. She nodded slowly, eyes still on the envelope. It was. I sat across from her. The steam from her cup curled between us. She reached out and touched my hand just briefly. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "I know." She looked around my apartment at the mismatched chairs, the faded rug, the stack of books on the windowsill. "You've been working so hard." "I wanted something that was mine," I said. "And I wanted you to have something that was yours." Her eyes misted but she didn't cry. She never did. She just held the envelope like it was fragile, like it might disappear if she let go. That evening my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number at first but the voice was unmistakable. "Why would you do that?" my brother asked. No greeting. No pause. I didn't raise mine. "Because I could." He was quiet for a moment. "You planned this." "I planned my life," I said. "You just didn't notice." His breath caught. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," I said. "It makes me different." He didn't respond. The line went silent, then disconnected. I stared at the screen for a while, then turned it face down. The next morning Mom called. "I want to see the house," she said. We drove there together. She didn't speak much during the ride, just looked out the window, hands folded in her lap. When we pulled into the driveway she hesitated before getting out. The porch steps creaked under her weight. She touched the doorframe, then stepped inside. The house was quiet. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft patterns on the floor. She walked through each room slowly, pausing in the kitchen, the living room, her old bedroom. She touched the walls, the doorknobs, the window frames. "It feels peaceful," she said. I nodded. "It's yours." We spent the next few days packing. She didn't take much, just her books, her tea set, a few framed photos. She left behind the heavy furniture, the old curtains, the boxes of things she hadn't touched in years. One afternoon, while wrapping her porcelain cups, she looked up. "He hasn't called me." "He will," I said. She smiled faintly. "He's proud. Like your father." I didn't respond. I just folded the newspaper around the last cup and placed it in the box. Moving day was quiet. A few neighbors waved. One brought over a pie. Mom smiled, thanked them, and went back to unpacking. I stayed until the sun dipped low, helping her arrange the bookshelves, hang the curtains, set up the kitchen. Before I left, she stood in the doorway holding a photo of the 3 of us. Me, her, and my brother, taken years ago at a beach we barely remembered. "I hope this brings us closer," she said. "I hope it brings you peace," I replied. That night I drove to the old house alone. I parked in the driveway, stepped out, and walked through the front door one last time. The rooms were empty now. The echoes were familiar but they didn't hurt anymore. I walked through each space slowly, remembering the quiet corners I used to hide in, the hallway where I overheard arguments, The kitchen where I once left a certificate no one noticed. In my old bedroom I found a single thumbtack still stuck in the wall. I pulled it out and held it in my palm. It was small, rusted, but it felt like something I needed to take with me. I left the keys on the counter, turned off the lights, and closed the door behind me. That house had taken enough. It was time to move forward. Driving home, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm. Like something had settled inside me. Like I had finally stepped out of a shadow I didn't realize I'd been living in. The gift wasn't the house. It wasn't the gesture. It was the moment. The shift, the reclaiming, the quiet declaration that I mattered. And that was enough.